In March of 2020, Governor J.B. Pritzker issued an emergency declaration, and every month since then, he has re-upped those emergency declarations concerning COVID-19. And he did it again recently, this past weekend. Good morning. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk at 6:40 now. Expecting a high of 78 here in Springfield with temperatures bouncing around a little bit, and you've got some possible showers throughout the week. So we shared some of the sentiments that the Republican candidates had during last week's GOP debate on ABC7. And just to kind of revisit that a bit here, again, you had several of the candidates, all six, answer questions about what they would do with COVID-19. And Attorney Max Sullivan said that he would put the issue of COVID-19 and people's health into their hands, not the government's hands. Here's Max Sullivan.
There'll be no mask mandates, and there'll be no vaccine mandates, and remote learning will be off the table. Look, the best person to make sure that they're healthy is you.
And again, that's just one of the six candidates that laid out their thoughts during the GOP debate. But yesterday, Governor J.B. Pritzker had two different events. And at one event, there was one reporter. At another event, there was another reporter. And some questions were asked of the governor, including, about crime. And we'll talk about crime a little bit later on here. But another question was asked at the first event that the governor attended about COVID-19. And the governor ultimately talking about the situation with COVID-19, saying that hospitalizations at this point are not rising to a level of concern because of therapies and vaccines.
That is one of the reasons why, even though you've seen case numbers go up, you have not seen hospitalizations go up commensurate with that.
So Governor J.B. Pritzker asked about that at his morning event, and then it comes around to the afternoon event where a different reporter was there asking a variety of questions, one of them being about COVID-19, and in particular, how the governor has reissued another emergency declaration for COVID-19. Remember, it's been 24 plus months since the governor has been issuing monthly emergency declarations concerning COVID-19. So here is some of what the governor had to say in response to that question concerning yet another emergency declaration filed by the governor's office concerning COVID-19. Again, this is monthly declarations he's been issuing since March of 2020.
You're talking about our disaster declaration. Yeah. Well, let me remind all of you that that like a flood, floods don't have a time limitation to them. They end whenever they end. So in Illinois, COVID-19 is like a massive flood that has taken place. It has been going on for a couple of years now. People getting the disease are needing to treat it, are needing to use the executive orders of the Office of Governor in order to help people get through this terrible time. We have, if anybody who's paid attention, and I think the people who have been complaining about this have not been, can see that the disaster declarations and the executive orders have been ramping down over many months now. And so as we ramp them down, we're also providing the supports that people need beyond the executive orders. But we're in a different situation now than we were months and months ago. And we're going to continue to provide support. We're still in COVID-19. We still have a pandemic. There is still a federal disaster that's been declared. And so we're going to keep providing the services that people need and ramping down because we can see that there are fewer and fewer people who are needing hospitalizations when we get surges. Thank God.
So again, Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday being asked about COVID-19 policies and the issuance of yet another executive order, another disaster proclamation concerning how to manage COVID-19. But one thing that Jesse Sullivan pointed out I do want to revisit here was the fact that there have been studies done, and in particular, studies relating state by state as to, did a state have better outcomes when it comes to COVID? Did the state have better outcomes when it comes to the economy and to education of children? Here is Jesse Sullivan.
Johns Hopkins showed those free states like Florida and Illinois, where we were locked down, no difference in COVID rates. The difference was on our economy and on our children and their learning outcomes suffering.
So how much is COVID-19 going to be a factor in the gubernatorial race? We shall see. And I think that's something else that people need to consider even down ballot when you get into some of the county level races even, because counties across the state, they had their own jurisdictional duties when it comes to either enforcing the governor's orders or not enforcing the governor's orders. And we actually saw a piecemeal nature of sorts when it comes to some states' attorneys, for instance, not willing to enforce the governor's orders for people not to go indoors to a restaurant, for instance. But we did have some in other counties where they actually did take court action locally to block restaurants from having indoor capacity. And that includes right here in Sangamon County that happened. So it's not just, what happens with, the executive office and the politics there, but it also does trickle down ballot as well. And it's something that each voter is going to have to ask themselves, did your elected officials conduct themselves in your best interest? So here we are now more than 2 years into the COVID-19 pandemic, and you can see how some of this is going to be feeding into the political discourse as we approach the November election. But we still got a June 28th primary to make through, so we'll, of course, be talking a little bit more about that coming up throughout the weeks ahead here. With Springfield's Morning News, I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and